Tiny organisms bloom in the silence, dancing with golden rays. Here begins the quiet miracle that feeds the world with no leaves or roots, only light and salt. The ocean's surface glows softly under the gentle touch of the sun. You float just beneath this glowing ceiling, where light filters through the water in slender beams, painting the sea with a quiet shimmer. Here, in this vast, calm expanse, life begins not with trees or fields, but with something far smaller, microscopic beings called phytoplankton. They are the ocean's invisible gardeners, quietly weaving the web of life with nothing but sunlight and salt water. You watch as these tiny architects gather the sun's light, capturing it like delicate threads of gold. They breathe in carbon dioxide from the water, transforming it with an alchemist's grace into oxygen and energy. This process, photosynthesis, is a dance older than any forest on land, a rhythm that hums in the deepest blue, unseen but vital. Though invisible to the naked eye, their presence is felt in every breath you take, every creature that swims above and feeds below. These phytoplankton bloom and fade with the shifting tides, their numbers swelling like whispered secrets told between waves. They are the quiet miracle that turns light into life, a slow song of creation played out beneath the calm surface. Their simple beauty is a reminder that even the smallest things can carry the weight of the world. As you float in this gentle light, you sense the delicate balance, how this fragile dance depends on the perfect harmony of sun, water, and nutrients. A world without roots or leaves, but rich with possibility. And as the ocean carries this invisible forest onward, you begin to wonder about the creatures who depend on this shimmering world, and the journeys it sets in motion. The ocean's quiet miracle whispers of deeper currents and hidden connections, waiting just beyond the horizon. You float just beneath the surface of the sea, where the water is warm, the light is dappled, and everything drifts slowly. It's quiet here, not silent, but peaceful, like the hush between thoughts. Around you, invisible to the naked eye, a living confetti pulses with light and life. These are not leaves. These are not trees. Yet here, in this wide blue openness, are the makers of the air you breathe. They are phytoplankton, tiny, soft, weightless, and they are everywhere. You can't see them without effort, but your body knows they're there. The ocean glows differently, where they gather. Sometimes in blooms they color the sea green or red, like spilled paint in slow motion. But most days, they are simply presence, unseen and steady. You drift with them now, in their quiet world. Each phytoplankton is a cell, just one. Yet inside each, sunlight is caught like a secret. Through a quiet alchemy called photosynthesis, they take in light, carbon dioxide and water, and give back oxygen. Breath, your breath, the sky's breath, half the world's oxygen from something too small to touch. Above you, the surface sparkles as sunlight breaks across it. That light travels down to reach these drifting cells, like a soft kiss on still water. And with that touch, life continues. The carbon exhaled by cities, by volcanoes, by breathing is caught here, locked away inside a drifting speck, and sometimes carried to the deep ocean floor for centuries. You follow one speck, imagining its story. It begins near the equator, where the water is warm and nutrient-rich. It floats, bobs, multiplies. It's eaten by a copod, which is eaten by a small fish, which is swallowed by a bigger one, and so on a ladder of mouths and fins and chance. But even if it's not eaten, the speck may die and fall, drifting down like marine snow. Below in the twilight zone, it joins countless others in a quiet rain of forgotten light. You picture this, the sea breathing in your place, while you sleep, while you speak, while you think about something else. It doesn't ask anything of you, it just gives. And so many things depend on it. Whales dive through clouds of plankton, mouths open wide. Sardines dart and flash, their scales like silver sparks. Even the great coral reefs, as bright and solid as anything on land, owe their beginnings to the food web plankton sustain. But the importance of plankton doesn't shout, it whispers. It is the hush in the lungs of Earth. It is the quiet labor of the small. You think of trees rooted tall, obvious in their stature. You think of forests that hum with birdsong and wind. And then you think of this, the invisible forest, a world where the trees are single cells, and the canopy floats, no branches, no bark, just green light in water, and yet in its own soft way, this floating forest is vaster than any on land. You imagine what would happen if it stopped. If the plankton disappeared, the whales would search the water and find it empty. The fish would go hungry. The ocean would lose its color. The oxygen in the atmosphere would dwindle, just a little at first, then a little more. The balance would shift. A silence would begin to grow, not just in the sea, but in the sky and on the shore. But for now, the plankton are still here, still breathing for the world. You let that thought rest inside your chest, like a calm tide. There's something sacred in this quiet resilience. No headlines, no monuments, just light, water, and patience. They bloom in pulses, great underwater festivals of growth. Scientists can see them from space, massive swirls of green and blue blooming and fading like breath over the surface of the planet. Phytoplankton mark the turning of the seasons more accurately than clocks. They rise when spring warms the water. They rest when winter darkens the light. Time for them is not kept in hours but in sunshine. And just as trees have rings, the ocean has cycles. You feel them now, a rhythm, not of seconds but of tides, of moons, of migrations too vast to see. You are floating in that rhythm. You feel smaller than before, but not in a fearful way, in a right-sized way, a humbling way, like remembering you are part of a story much older, much wider than any you could write alone. You drift with the plankton, just for a moment longer, and in that moment, the world breathes with you. You understand something, now. The sea is not just water, it is memory, it is chemistry, it is life speaking in a language too old to name a soft syllable, whispered over and over by invisible mouths. And still the ocean is not finished speaking, for just beneath this drifting stillness, the water begins to move, a current you hadn't noticed before. It is colder, deeper, darker, a pull, a question. Where does all this breath go? You begin to follow it downward, inward where warmth gives way to chill, and where light no longer leads the way. You lie still beneath a tree, and somewhere in the hush of leaves above you, light is being eaten. Not all light, only some, red, mostly, blue too. The green that remains is cast back outward, reflected gently into your waiting eyes, and that's why the leaves shimmer that deep, calming color. But within their stillness, something far from still is happening. In each leaf, each thin, soft blade, tiny structures spin their quiet work. Chloroplasts, the sun catchers. You imagine them like glass jars floating in a darkened sea, filled with emerald fire, each one humming with chlorophyll, a molecule shaped by time and need, tuned perfectly to drink the red heat of the sun. You close your eyes, but in your mind the process unfolds. Photons, tiny packets of sunlight, stream down from above like golden rain. They touch the leaf's surface and slip through its skin, reaching those waiting chlorophyll molecules. And when light strikes chlorophyll, something ancient stirs. An electron leaps alive with energy, almost startled by its sudden flight. This leap, this excited jitter of a single particle, is the first step in something wondrous. Photosynthesis. The word feels too mechanical, too stiff for what's happening here. This is more like alchemy, light, turning to life. That runaway electron is caught, passed like a note along a chain of proteins, each one holding it briefly before letting it go. This chain is the electron transport system, but you imagine it instead as a relay of dancers, each one guiding the energy forward with care. As the energy moves, it pulls hydrogen ions to one side of a barrier, creating tension, a pressure, a readiness. Like water behind a dam, something is waiting to burst. And when the gate opens, those ions rush through a spinning molecular turbine, ATP synthesis, and the motion becomes energy your body would recognize. ATP, the currency of all life. You breathe softly as you picture this. Sunlight becomes movement. Movement becomes storage. ATP becomes power for building sugar from air. Carbon dioxide, exhaled by animals, drifting gently on the breeze, enters through tiny mouths on the underside of leaves. Stomata. It mingles with water drawn up from the soil, and together under chlorophyll's gaze they are stitched into glucose sugar, a molecule of energy, a packet of preserved sunlight. Imagine that. Each breath you take releases carbon. Each plant you see drinks it in, and with a whisper of water and a shimmer of light, that carbon is folded into form into stem and leaf and seed and fruit. You too are made of this story. The sugar becomes roots and petals, apples and wheat. And when you eat, you're simply borrowing the sun's gift passed through plant hands into yours. But the beauty goes deeper still. In the vast oceans, microscopic phytoplankton perform the same quiet miracle. They drift in the sunlit layers of water, turning light into sugar, releasing oxygen into the sea and sky. They're so small, you'd miss them if you didn't know where to look yet. They make more than half of the world's breathable air. Even the breath you just drew in owes, thanks to these tiny floating lanterns. You remember now, chlorophyll doesn't just make things grow, it connects you to forests, to oceans, to the long green thread of life that spans the planet. And it began over 2 billion years ago. A single-celled organism, sunlit and simple, learned to trap light. It shared that ability with others through endosymbiosis, a once independent being swallowed by another, not to be digested, but to become part of a greater whole. That symbiont became the chloroplast. Its DNA still lingers inside, like an ancient voice humming a quiet song. This idea that things once separate can become one sits in your mind like a smooth stone. It reminds you that cooperation is old, older than trees, older than bones, older than memory. Now the trees above you sway slightly, and you wonder, what does it feel like to be a leaf, to be so still, yet so busy, to be flat and thin but filled with transforming power. Each cell, each molecule, working tirelessly beneath that calm green surface. They don't think, but they respond. They don't speak, but they share. They don't move, but they shape the world. In tropical rainforests, entire canopies buzz with this photosynthetic orchestra. Sunlight dapples the forest floor like spilled gold, but most of the light is caught above layered leaves stretching toward the sky, each one capturing what little light it can. Even desert plants, with their thick skins and spiny armor, hum with chlorophyll. Their green may hide beneath wax and thorn, but it works just the same, quiet, enduring, efficient. You think of the word verdant, a word that means green, but also rich, alive, lush with potential, and you realize chlorophyll isn't just a pigment, it's a memory of sunlight, a method of holding the day inside, a reminder that even silence can be full of work. You return, in your mind, to the leaf above your resting body. It doesn't see you, it doesn't need to, it simply does what it has always done, absorbs, converts, creates, a partner in the dance of breath. And so as you lie beneath it, your exhale feeds it, its exhale feeds you. You are linked not just in space but in rhythm, breath to breath, cycle to cycle, life to life. You drift slightly, not asleep but softened, wrapped in the understanding that energy never dies, it only changes form. The sun in the sky becomes sugar in a tree, the sugar becomes fruit, the fruit becomes part of you, and you become part of something vaster than yourself. Somewhere, another leaf begins its day, and light finds its way to the chlorophyll, waiting inside. You take a breath, in and out. That exhale, so simple, so silent, carries a hidden passenger, carbon, a wisp of it. Born in your body, now set free, it drifts upward for a moment, then surrenders to the wind, caught in currents. It travels brushing treetops, skipping over hills, swirling above the city's glow. The air is alive with motion, with invisible tides. Your carbon doesn't stop, it doesn't stay. Eventually, it finds the sea, the edge of the world, where sky kisses water in an eternal shimmering dance. Here the ocean opens itself to the sky, not with hands, but with surface tension, A tender film, thin as a memory, stretches across the waves, and through that film, the carbon slips. As if the ocean takes a breath of you, down it sinks, molecule by molecule, pulled gently into a slow spiral of motion. This is the great ocean conveyor, the thermohaline circulation, a ribbon of water that circles the globe, slow as thought, deep as time. It moves not with speed, but with certainty. The warm waters at the surface carry whispers from the tropics. But as they cool, near the poles, they grow heavier, denser. They sink, pulling surface water down with them, and along with it, the carbon you gave. Now your carbon is no longer air. It is part of the sea. It joins the drifting soup of dissolved things, salts, minerals, memories, and it begins to move, not quickly, but endlessly through depths, where light does not reach, through silence, broken only by the clicks of distant whales, 1,000 meters down. Then two, then more. Here, carbon is currency. Tiny organisms, plankton, bacteria, the ghost-like forms of jelly and drift trade in it. They eat it, breathe it, build themselves from it. Some carbon is taken into bodies' fragile, flickering lives. A single phytoplankton catches a photon and blooms, using carbon to grow, just for a moment. Then it is eaten, or it dies, and it sinks. The ocean is always sinking. It is a snow of life, falling softly in the dark. Scientists call it marine snow, but it's not snow like you know it. Not cold flakes, but flakes of everything that once lived. Tiny skeletons, faint shells, each one holding carbon, on its way to the seafloor, down, down, into silence. Some of that carbon, your carbon, reaches the bottom, where the pressure is crushing and the temperature near freezing. Here time moves differently. Sediment piles slowly a millimeter every century, a whisper-thin layer laid down by invisible hands. The carbon rests, maybe for centuries, maybe for millions of years. Some of it is locked away, held in the arms of limestone, trapped in the shells of ancient foraminifera, buried beneath layers of mud and mystery. Other atoms may not sleep so long. Volcanoes may awaken, tectonic plates may shift. A stirring may come, and carbon may rise again, carried up in a plume of magma, exhaled once more into the air by a vent on the ocean floor. Or maybe sooner than that, a fish eats the plankton that ate the carbon, and another fish eats that fish, and then a net, a ship, a human hand, and carbon, your carbon, finds itself in a fish market, a dinner plate. A new breath from someone far away. This is not the journey of a single breath, it is the cycle of breath itself, the long inhale and exhale of a planet. You are part of that rhythm. You exhale, and the sea inhales. The ocean is not separate, it is your twin, in this cycle. Breathing with you, holding your atoms, giving them back in time. You close your eyes, and in the dark, you imagine the carbon sinking, softly, slowly, through a cathedral of stillness. You drift with it down past the swimming schools, past the twilight zone, into the deep, where even dreams grow quiet. And as you descend, you begin to sense something larger, a memory carried in every carbon atom, of ancient forests, of the lungs of dinosaurs, of fires and photosynthesis, of cells dividing in warm seas, long before names existed. Your breath is ancient, and the ocean remembers. Even as your body lies still, the atoms you've given are on their way, moving through realms you've never touched, whale song corridors, coral crypts, thermal vents pulsing like slow heartbeats. And though you are not moving, your breath is journeying, a quiet adventure, a peaceful falling, a becoming. You are not alone in your stillness, you are part of something vast and slow and kind. A world where everything cycles, but nothing is lost. Even in sleep your atoms continue the story. They fall, they rise, they sink, they bloom, they change, they return. And so you breathe again, softly, without urgency, into the dark. Not knowing exactly where this carbon will go, but trusting that the sea knows what to do with it, because it always has. You drift downward, gently, as if sinking through layers of time and water. Beneath the surface of a tranquil sea, the light filters in golden strands, warm and soft, like memories pouring through curtains at dawn. The deeper you go, the more the world slows, and the silence becomes a quiet hum, not empty, but full of life, so small, so delicate. It almost doesn't seem real, but it is. It's the foundation. And there, suspended in the glowing stillness, they appear like stars scattered across the velvet black of space. Diatoms, tiny and luminous. Their glass shells gleam like frost on forgotten windows. They float with purpose, though no one sees them move. Their symmetry is astonishing, perfectly shaped, like nature has drawn them with an artist's compass. Circles, ovals, triangles, spirals and lacework, patterns more intricate than snowflakes, and just as fleeting. You are surrounded by billions, perhaps trillions, and yet they remain anonymous to the world above. But you notice, you feel their presence. Each diatom, just one cell, is wrapped in a case of silica glass built from sand and sea, a palace of transparent crystal, constructed silently, and inside, a living engine, a tiny being who takes sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide, and makes life. Oxygen, energy, breath. You breathe in softly, as if you're part of their rhythm. These drifting wonders are part of the ocean's skin, always in motion, carried by currents, blooming in sunlight, vanishing when the season turns, and in their silence they feed the world. Every fish, every whale, every coral reef begins with these star-glass architects. You watch one divide slowly, gently. One becomes two, two become four. A pulse of life that stretches backward in time, over millions of years. You imagine ancient oceans, long before ships or maps or names. Even then, they floated, quiet, endlessly working. They don't speak, but their work tells a story. We are the breath between waves. And then, deeper still, you sense another presence. Ancient, older even than the diatoms. Cyanobacteria. They do not shimmer like glass, no ornate armor, no crystalline shell, just threads of green and blue coiled like whispers. But their story is even older, nearly 3-5 billion years old. They are among the first to turn light into life, the first to breathe out oxygen, long before lungs had evolved to take it in. You see them resting on stones, layered like forgotten blankets. Stromatolites, the fossilized remnants of their colonies, still rise in shallow seas, time solidified. You reach out, brushing your mind across their history. In their quiet work, Earth changed. An atmosphere once choked with gases began to soften. The sky turned blue, oceans filled with new breath. Life, complex and curious, followed in their wake. You wonder, can something so small truly be so powerful? But you already know the answer. These creatures are not just past, they are present. In every lake, in every tide pool, in every breath of sea spray. Diatoms and cyanobacteria together weave the invisible web of life. Half the oxygen you breathe comes from their work. Not forests, not grasslands, but these tiny oceanic lights drifting just beneath the waves. Their collaboration is silent but essential. Diatoms take over when the water is rich with silica, blooming in glorious clouds that color the seas. Cyanobacteria thrive in warmth and stillness, sometimes glowing at night with bioluminescent joy. Each responds to the rhythm of the earth, the seasons, the light, the nutrients rising from the depths. You float beside them, no longer an outsider. Here the world does not rush, it does not demand. It only is calm, precise, interconnected. Life supporting life in a million unnoticed ways. No fame, no noise, only function, only grace. A gentle current sways around you, and you think of balance, how these organisms regulate not just oxygen, but carbon, nitrogen, even the temperature of the planet, not through ambition, through being, through existing exactly as they are. The sun above dims slightly as a cloud passes, and you feel the entire microbial world adjust ever so slightly to the change in light. a slow dance rehearsed for eons. You feel their awareness not as thought but as presence, like trees leaning toward the light, or tides responding to the moon. A deep knowing, and you begin to understand that the most vital things are not always the loudest. The builders of our air do not roar, they do not race, they do not need eyes, or words, or hands. They float, they shimmer, they breathe. You carry that thought with you as the scene gently begins to fade, as if carried upward on a soft rising wave. The diatoms shimmer a final time, like stars winking out. The cyanobacteria curl gently back into their resting coils, and you are left in a space between thought and memory, cradled by the ocean's breath. A final gentle current brushes past, like a hand on your shoulder, nudging your awareness forward. Somewhere ahead, a question begins to form, as quiet as the organisms you leave behind. If life at its smallest can shape the air, what else might be shaping the world, in ways you cannot yet see? You drift downward, slowly, as if descending through the fading memory of a sunset. The warm gold above fades into soft silver, then blue again, but darker, quieter. This is the ocean's twilight zone. Light hasn't disappeared yet. Not entirely. It lingers here, thin and tired, stretching in long slanted fingers through the darkening water, and yet life reaches for it. Below you, strange leaves tremble with purpose. They belong to algae and phytoplankton that still photosynthesize barely on the last crumbs of sunlight that reach this far. It is a place of half light and whole persistence. You float past a colony of prochlorocustiny green architects of Earth's oxygen. Each one is smaller than a speck of dust, yet together they produce a breath of the planet. They work with discipline, absorbing photons like whispers, turning light into food. They do not need much, just enough. In this soft dimness, abundance looks different. Growth slows, energy thins, but life does not wither, it adapts. You pass a forest of ghostly jellyfish, pulsing gently, not with purpose but with presence. They do not chase or build or hunt. They simply move with the rhythm of the sea. Their translucent bells glow faintly, bioluminescent as if carrying borrowed starlight. Light is scarce here, so some life creates its own. You wonder what it means to grow in low light, to bloom without being seen, to photosynthesize in the half-forgotten hush of twilight. This zone, the mesopelagic, is not the deep yet. It is the in-between. Day never fully arrives here, nor does night fully take hold. The creatures here live in gradients, and they have mastered the art of living with less. Small fish with silver flanks drift by, tilting just enough to reflect the dim glow from above. Their scales are mirrors, designed not to shine but to disappear. Camouflage here is not color, it is reflection, and hiding is more important than hunger. Above, predators hunt with sight, below with silence, and in between, in this fragile hush, you float among lives that have perfected the pause. A slow-moving squid glides past, skin rippling with patterns that no one may see. Its chromatophores shift like thoughts, instinctive, unreadable, beautiful. Here, color is not communication, it is memory, or habit, or perhaps just motion for the sake of motion. You follow a trail of marine snowflakes of dead plankton, bits of fecal matter, tiny remains drifting ever downward. It is soft and constant, like a snowfall made of forgotten things. This too is part of the system. In the dim, even decay is nourishment. And then you see it, a cluster of deep-water algae growing on the slope of a sunken ridge. Their leaves are dark, nearly black, maximizing every trace of light. They do not stretch upward fast, but they do stretch, patient, slow. They do not need light to be strong. They need it only enough to begin. You imagine being one of them, rooted in shadow, opening slowly toward a light you can't quite feel but still believe in. The discipline of photosynthesis here is not about speed or bounty, it's about consistency, about trust, about making do with what is given, without complaint. Nearby, a small amphipod scavenges along the ridge, antenna twitching. Life in the twilight zone does not seek brilliance, it seeks balance. In this subdued world, everything conserves energy, movement, sound, and yet, the beauty of it is undeniable, not in vivid color, but in shape and survival. In the fluid ballows of soft-bodied creatures, in the quiet glow of bioluminescence, in the resilience of life that needs so little, yet continues so completely, you begin to notice a rhythm, a soft pulsing, a breath that is not yours, but belongs to the sea itself. The water pushes and pulls with currents that rise and fall like thoughts, and somewhere in this rhythm, you realize, growing in less doesn't mean growing smaller, it means growing wiser. You pause beside a drifting siphonophoria creature that is many creatures, living as one. Some parts move it, others feed it, some protect. Each part alone is helpless, but together they form a graceful colony that drifts with confidence. You marvel at the cooperation, the quiet coordination. In the dim, nothing thrives alone. Everything relies, everything leans. The light here is not bright enough to see clearly, but maybe that is the point. You are meant to feel your way, to follow motion, not outline, to understand, not observe. The fish that rise at night from this zone perform the largest migration on Earth every evening. Millions ascend to feed in the shallows and return before dawn. They follow the rhythm of light, obeying a clock written in brightness and shadow. And in that dance, you see the wisdom of twilight. It teaches patience, it teaches timing. Just as roots stretch in dark soil toward a sun they have never seen, life in this in-between stretches toward hope, toward continuity. You close your eyes, floating still, and imagine the taste of photosynthesis on the tongue. Sweet and slow, like honey left in sunlight, too long. A flavor not of power, but of presence. A deep silence settles in your chest as you feel the weight of water above, the cool embrace around, the soft drift below. And yet you do not feel small, you feel aligned. You begin to wonder, what else grows in dimness? What other life, invisible for now, continues anyway, waiting, working, glowing faintly in some quiet unlit place? The thought lingers, it leads you downward, toward deeper waters still, where even light gives way to something stranger. You begin at the surface, where sunlight dances and waves speak in soft syllables, but this is only the skin of the sea. Just beneath, something deeper stirs. The ocean breathes, not in quick gasps, but in long, slow tides of movement. These are not waves. These are rivers within the seabroad, invisible roads made not of water alone, but of energy, salt, heat, and memory. You float downward, gently sinking past the light-filled top layer into the twilight below. The temperature shifts, cooler now, quieter. As your thoughts slow, you begin to feel the presence of the ocean's secret highways. The currents, some broad and steady, some winding and deep, they stretch for thousands of miles, curling like ribbons around the continents. The Gulf Stream, the Kuroshio, the Antarctic Circumpolar, each has its own tempo, its own direction, its own whispered song. The currents do not race, they drift, they wander, and yet they shape the climate of the Earth itself. The warm waters that pass Florida's coast once began their journey near the equator, soaked in sun. As they travel north, they warm the air above, wrapping their arms around distant shores. Norway's winter, softened by a current it cannot see. London's fog, gently stirred by ocean breath. You follow one of these flows, you do not need to swim, only drift. The current carries you as it carries all things: heat, salt, nutrients, and life. You begin to notice the subtle pattern show: warmer water rises and colder water sinks. How salty water slides beneath fresher layers. The ocean is not chaotic, it is layered, structured, endlessly patient. Below you, the conveyor belt of the deep ocean turns like a wheel. This is the thermohaline circulation, the global current driven by temperature and salt. Warm water evaporates, leaving salt behind. As it cools, it grows dense and sinks, falling into the abyss where light cannot follow. There, it begins its long journey through the ocean's belly. A single drop might take 1,000 years to return to the surface, and yet return it will. You imagine yourself as a molecule of water. Perhaps you were once part of a wave. Then perhaps you joined a raindrop. Now, you've become part of something larger. You're sinking into the Atlantic off Greenland, pulled downward by density and gravity. Around you, the water is thick with stories, with memory. The ancient cold wraps around you like a soft blanket. You drift for centuries in the deep. No light, no sound, just the slow pressure of time. But even here, life finds a way. Microbes cling to tiny particles, riding alongside you. Nutrients gather in silence, waiting for the day they will rise again to the sunlit world above, where life blooms like spring. Eventually you rise pulled upward by upwelling currents near the coast of South America. There, cold water meets the surface again, bringing with it the gift of nutrients. Plankton bloom in celebration, tiny green lanterns flickering to life. You are part of their feast, feeding the base of the food chain with ancient stories from the deep. The surface seems brighter now, not because the sun has changed, but because you understand what lies beneath. The surface is fed by the deep, just as thought is fed by silence and breath by stillness. The ocean does not separate itself, it connects. Phytoplankton float beside you, like tiny passengers on a train without tracks. Some are round like pearls, others spiral like galaxies. Each breathes in carbon dioxide, releasing oxygen in return. Half the air you breathe comes from these drifting green mines. They are small but mighty, silent but essential. You marvel at the way the ocean moves itself, not in straight lines, but in spirals, loops, eddies. Some currents swirl in place, trapped by geography. Others stretch out endlessly, turning corners of the planet. The Earth itself spins, and the Coriolis effect nudges the currents gently to the right in the north, to the left in the south. It is not a force you can see, but it shapes everything. You feel this twist in your bones now, as if your own thoughts spiral, slow and deliberate, like a gyre circling a quiet sea. And then, a pause. You float in the Pacific, near the equator. Here the sun blazes high, and winds shift. You sense the balance of the ocean is delicate. When winds weaken or strengthen, when surface temperatures rise or fall, vast changes unfold. El Niño and La Niña. The ocean breathes irregularly here sometimes, with fever, sometimes with chill. Weather patterns ripple across continents. Droughts, floods, storms, all from a small change in the push and pull of water. It humbles you. You are not separate from these currents. They pass through your weather, your crops, your breath. The ocean carries not just ships and salt, but stories, histories, consequences. As you rise again toward the surface, you feel the weight of time lifting. The light returns, the world regains its color. But now the waves look different. Now you know they sit atop a symphony of motion, a planetary bloodstream flowing beneath. The sea is not still, it never has been, it never will be. Even in sleep, it stirs, and as you let your mind rest like a leaf on this silent current, a question begins to rise in the distance like a gentle swell. If the oceans breathe, what happens when the earth holds its breath? You inhale the memory of waves, the exhale of plankton, the sea breathes with you, in silence and rhythm. Tonight, your lungs echo with distant tides. You settle gently into your quiet space, feeling the soft rise and fall of your breath. With each inhale, imagine drawing in something far older than yourself, the very essence of the ocean, the vast blue cradle of life. This breath is not just air, it is the story of the sea, whispered through the currents and carried on the tides. You breathe in the memory of waves, the gentle roll of endless water stretching beneath the sky. Long before your first breath, long before the forests, the deserts and the mountains, there was the ocean, a boundless world of salt and silence, alive with rhythms both steady and mysterious. It was here in this ancient cradle that life first opened its eyes, or more precisely, its membranes to the possibilities of existence. Tiny, unseen creatures drifted in the water, living softly in a dance of light and shadow, of rise and fall. As you breathe in, imagine the plankton, those microscopic architects of the sea, drifting through sunlit waters. They are not just floating, they are breathing too, creating the oxygen that has become the breath of the world. They release tiny bubbles that rise like stars in the vast darkness, gifting the air you now breathe. The ocean and the air are bound together in a quiet exchange, a slow, endless conversation that carries life forward. Your lungs, as you inhale, echo the rhythm of distant tides. The ocean breathes with you, waves pulling in and out, relentless and soothing. Your chest expands gently like the crest of a wave reaching toward the shore, and then recedes with the ebb. This is the rhythm of existence itself, the slow, steady beat that has carried life from ancient waters to the forests, the skies, and now to you. In the earliest seas, life was fragile and simple, yet persistent. Single-celled organisms floated in the ocean's embrace, tiny miracles of chemistry and chance. Over eons, these small beings found new ways to survive, to thrive. Some learned to capture sunlight, turning it into energy in a process we now call photosynthesis. This slow alchemy filled the ocean, and eventually the air with oxygen, shaping the atmosphere you breathe tonight. Think of the ocean as a mother, her breath shaping the world. The air you take in carries the legacy of her gift, oxygen, that makes your life possible. It is a breath shared across time and space, linking you to all living things, from the smallest plankton to the tallest tree, to the very stars that watch silently above. As you breathe out, you release tiny echoes of the sea, the exhale of plankton and waves mingling with your own. It is a soft return to the world, a quiet rhythm that connects the vastness of the ocean to the intimacy of your body. This cycle is ancient and ongoing, a breath without beginning or end, a memory carried on the tides. You feel the salt on your skin, though you are far from the shore. The sea is within you, its breath mingling with yours, a silent pulse beneath your heart. The waves have traveled millions of miles, over millions of years, only to arrive here in this moment, in this breath. There is a vastness in your lungs, a depth that carries the mystery of the ocean's past. Tonight, as you settle deeper into your rest, let this connection cradle you. Feel the calm pulse of tides mirrored in your own heartbeat. The ocean and your breath move together, slow and steady, like an ancient lullaby sung by the world itself. With each breath, you carry the sea's memory, a reminder of the delicate balance that sustains all life. From the water that birthed us to the air that fills our lungs, this journey is a dance of transformation and belonging. The ocean's breath is your breath, and in this shared rhythm, you are never alone. As your breath slows, drifting gently, the quiet waves whisper a new question. What other mysteries lie in the depths of this ancient ocean? What stories are waiting just beneath the surface to be discovered? You lie gently beneath the vast, dark sky of the ocean, where sunlight filters down like scattered whispers. Here, far from the shore's noise, the sea holds secrets, invisible currents that stir the water, carrying iron, nitrogen, and phosphates like quiet messengers. These are the ocean's secret ingredients, the unseen chefs crafting a delicate recipe that feeds life itself. Imagine iron, a metal you might hold in your hand, drifting through the water in tiny, almost imperceptible amounts. Though small in number, iron is a key that unlocks life's potential. It fuels the engines of microscopic plants called phytoplankton, which float gently in the sunlit layers of the ocean. Without iron, these tiny green chefs would falter, unable to cook their food through photosynthesis, the ancient process where sunlight becomes energy. But iron does not come freely. It travels across vast distances, carried by winds that blow dust from distant deserts, settling softly on the ocean's surface like a sprinkle of spice. In this way, faraway lands and the ocean are connected in a quiet, invisible dance. The wind's breath becomes a bridge, bringing nutrients that spark new life. Alongside iron flows nitrogen, the ocean's silent architect. Nitrogen is more than just a gas you breathe here in the water. It transforms, changing form through invisible chemical steps. Certain special bacteria, like hidden artisans, take nitrogen from the air and turn it into nourishment for phytoplankton. This alchemy of life is slow and precise, a rhythm that has played for millions of years. Phosphates join the trio, subtle and essential, like the pinch of salt in a recipe. They provide the building blocks for DNA and energy, supporting life's blueprint at its smallest scale. Without phosphates, the ocean's recipe would be incomplete, a song without a melody. Together, these ingredients rise and fall in patterns, creating waves of abundance and quiet. When the nutrients gather, phytoplankton bloom, painting the ocean's surface with swirls of green, invisible gardens that feed the entire sea. Fish follow these gardens, and birds circle above, drawn by the promise of life. But the bloom is fragile, it fades as nutrients are consumed or washed away, leaving behind clear, quiet waters waiting for the next wave. You sense this ancient balance, a rhythm older than human memory. It is a story told without words, the ebb and flow of nutrients, life and light. The ocean does not rush, it breathes slowly, a pulse you can feel if you listen closely. Each element plays its part in this quiet symphony, fragile yet enduring, simple yet profound. And beneath the surface, where light dims and mysteries deepen, the ocean's recipe continues to unfold, quietly stirring toward the next chapter in its endless story, a story where every ingredient, no matter how small, holds the power to shape the world. The ocean is not quiet. It speaks to the sky, the land, the seasons. Its photosynthesis shapes clouds, storms, and temperature. What happens in the blue depths echoes in forests and deserts. As you fall asleep, you hear the planet breathing in slow cycles. Where sows was e. You hear the planet breathing in slow cycles. You begin your journey beside the vast ocean, where water stretches beyond the horizon like an endless blue dream. It is not still. Beneath its shimmering surface, the ocean murmurs secrets in rhythms slow and deep. You listen carefully to this ancient conversation, the ocean speaking softly, almost like a lullaby, to the sky above, the earth beneath, and the gentle turning of the seasons. This dialogue is woven through the delicate dance of photosynthesis in the ocean's depths. Tiny plants, invisible to the eye, drift through the sunlit waters. They are the ocean's breath absorbing sunlight and turning it into life, a process that feeds not just the ocean itself, but the entire planet. Imagine these minute ocean plants, called phytoplankton, as countless tiny artists painting the sky. Their photosynthesis releases oxygen and absorbs carbon dioxide, shaping the very clouds you watch drift lazily overhead. The moisture from the ocean rises, gathering in the air to form clouds that float like soft cotton, heavy with promise. You watch as these clouds move slowly across the sky, drifting toward the land, carrying with them the ocean's silent messages. The energy from the sun warms the water, and in return the ocean sends heat back into the atmosphere. This delicate exchange stirs the air, weaving patterns of wind and weather that touch forests, deserts, and mountains far away. The ocean's whispers ripple through the seasons, shifting tides and currents, guiding migrations of creatures large and small. Beneath the surface, a complex ballet unfolds, waves pulse and swirl, currents trace invisible paths, and the ocean's heart beats steady and sure. You sense how the ocean's photosynthesis is not just a simple act of survival, but a quiet force shaping storms and temperature, the gentle breeze and the fierce winds. When the ocean breathes in, moisture rises and clouds gather. When it exhales, rains fall to nourish the land. Far beyond the shore, in the deep blue, light fades slowly. Here in the twilight of the ocean's depths, other stories unfold. Creatures adapted to darkness, glowing softly in the black water, remind you that life finds a way, even in places unseen. The ocean's vastness is a mirror to the planet's rhythms, its breath syncs with the pulse of forests and deserts alike. The moisture it sends to the land feeds the green canopies of trees and the dry sands of distant dunes. It connects every corner of Earth in a gentle, invisible web. You feel the slow cycles of this breathing planet, tides rising and falling, seasons turning with quiet grace, the steady rhythm of life unfolding beneath the stars. As you lie down, eyes closing softly, you imagine the ocean's voice carried on the wind, a song of water and light, of growth and change. The ocean is alive, and its whispers are never truly silent. They echo in the rustling of leaves, the fall of rain, the warmth of sunlight, all woven into the fabric of your dreams. And as you drift deeper into rest, you begin to wonder, what stories do the stars tell as they watch over this breathing blue world? Blooms can grow too fast. Green swirls of warning, warming waters and human hands sometimes tip the balance. Yet within this fragility, there's a lesson. Care is not optional. You rest in the hope that attention can heal. The ocean, vast and deep, carries its secrets like whispered lullabies beneath the waves. Imagine yourself drifting gently on its surface, the sun warm above and the coolness of the sea cradling you below. Here, the world feels ancient, timeless, a breathing, living pulse connecting water, light and life. But sometimes, the rhythm shifts, subtle and unsettling. Like a hidden note in a quiet song, it speaks to you of change. Beneath the surface, green swirls begin to gather, like the slow unfurling of a soft veil. They bloom rapidly, almost without warning, spreading like a secret message written in color and motion. These are no ordinary blooms. They are the breath of the sea itself, yet their speed is unnatural, a surge born from warmth and imbalance. You watch as these blooms, made of tiny, unseen creatures, multiply with a quiet urgency. They stretch and weave, like threads of emerald light caught in the water's flow. In their silent dance there is beauty, but also a whisper of warning. These blooms hold the power to transform the ocean's face, changing it in ways that ripple far beyond what you see. The warmth you feel from the sun above is more than comfort now. It carries a weight, the slow rise of temperatures that tip delicate scales. The ocean's embrace warms, inviting these blooms to flourish unchecked. Here, the balance teeters, and you sense the fragile edge where life's harmony may falter. Human hands, though unseen beneath the waves, are part of this story too. The water carries traces of many journeys from land to sea, from earth to ocean depths. Pollutants, nutrients, and the marks of human activity drift quietly into these waters, feeding the blooms and accelerating their spread. It is a reminder that even distant actions ripple through the natural world, touching places far from sight. In the midst of this fragile dance, you find a moment to pause, to breathe in the quiet wisdom of the ocean. The blooms, though wild and fast, are not just warnings, they are lessons whispered on the tides. They speak softly of the care that must not be overlooked, the attention that nature asks from us all. As you float gently on the waves, you realize that care is not optional. It is the very thread that weaves the ocean's future. Without it, the green swirls grow unchecked, transforming the sea into a place less welcoming, less vibrant. But with it, there is hope, a chance to heal, to restore the gentle balance that sustains life beneath the surface. The blooms remind you that the ocean is a living mirror, reflecting the choices made far away. It is patient, yet it carries memory of warm summers, of cold winters, of hands that tend and hands that take. Each swirl is a message, a call to listen deeply and act gently. You imagine the small creatures that form these blooms, invisible to the eye, yet mighty in their numbers. They drift on currents, fueled by sunlight and nutrients, shaping the ocean's face in waves of green. Their presence is both fragile and fierce, a paradox of nature's power and vulnerability. In this quiet moment, you feel a connection to the ocean, to the blooms, to the hands that shape their world. You rest in the hope that attention can heal, that gentle care can slow the rush of growth and bring balance once more. The ocean waits, patient and vast, ready to breathe again in harmony. As night deepens, the green swirls fade into shadow, but their lesson lingers. You carry it with you, a soft promise whispered on the wind that care, like the ocean's tide, must return again and again, steady and true. And so you drift onward, carried by the rhythm of water and thought, moving closer to the next question. The ocean will ask you about the life that thrives beneath these blooms, and the fragile beauty still waiting to be discovered. You lie still, feeling the gentle rise and fall of your chest, the quiet breath that carries life within you. Each inhale draws the world in, and each exhale sends it back out, a slow dance between you and the air surrounding your skin. In this calm moment, you realize you are part of something far greater, a delicate thread woven into the vast fabric of existence. Beneath the surface of distant seas, invisible to the eye, tiny creatures called plankton pulse with quiet energy. They dance in sunlight filtering through the water, turning light into life through a magic older than time itself, photosynthesis. These microscopic beings are the breath of the ocean, and in their slow, steady rhythm, you find a mirror to your own breathing. Your lungs, with their intricate folds and countless pathways, share a kinship with the leaves of trees and the bodies of plankton. They all perform a sacred exchange, taking in air or sunlight, transforming it into energy, and releasing life-giving oxygen back into the world. You breathe in what the ocean breathes out, and the ocean breathes in what you exhale. This eternal cycle, invisible and unstoppable, is a lullaby sung by the earth itself. Above, stars shimmer with quiet certainty, distant yet connected. They are the ancient forges where elements were born, the same elements that now pulse inside your body and the bodies of plankton alike. When you inhale, you draw in stardust, and when you exhale, you send a whisper back to the universe. You are a child of the cosmos, carried on waves of air and water, woven into the song of life. As your mind softens, you imagine drifting deeper into the ocean's embrace. The water moves gently around you, warm and familiar, a cradle for life's endless flow. The plankton swirl like tiny lanterns, glowing softly in the twilight, each one a spark of energy sustaining countless creatures above and below. You are surrounded by a world humming with quiet miracles. In this shared breath between land, sea, and sky, you feel a profound gratitude. Gratitude for the unseen workings of nature, for the gentle pulse of life moving through you, and for the silent connections that hold all things together. You are part of this vast, tender web, fragile, yet resilient, infinite yet intimate. Your thoughts slow, and your body sinks deeper into the calm. The boundary between you and the world blurs, and you become the ocean, the air, the stars, and the plankton all at once. You float on waves of connection, held gently by the earth's own heartbeat. Here in this final hush before sleep, you carry the ocean's rhythm within you. You carry the stars' ancient light. You carry the breath of the world itself. And as your eyelids grow heavy, you drift softly into dreams cradled by the endless tide of life, waiting for the morning's gentle question, how does this vast breath shape the world beneath the waves?